Thank you all for listening and watching my videos. Please subscribe and like my channel Master Coolits. Hoping that you will not skip my ads. It's a big help for me by not skipping it. Thank you so much.
In the arena's electric atmosphere, the ground seemed to thrum with anticipation. Zane Martel stood resolute, a solitary figure against a backdrop of jeers and cheers, his intense gaze sweeping over the crowd like a hawk. Each eye that met his flinched away, unable or unwilling to hold the stare of the once champion whose reputation was etched into the very stones of the arena. The weight of Master Rudolph's arrival, a man of enormous influence and mystery, pressed down upon the onlookers with an almost physical force, a testament to the gravity of the unfolding drama. In the dim fringes, obscured by shadows, the irate voice of Alex White, the vengeful dean of the White Wolf Academy, cut through the murmurs like a blade.
Disciples of White Wolf, when you face those from Azure Dragon, show no mercy. A slip leading to death, merely 10 days in seclusion as penance.
The crowd's response was a mixture of shock and excitement. Their murmurs rose like a tide, the undercurrents of their whispers thick with fear and fascination. Zane Martel's stance today was not just a challenge. It was a declaration, a clear demarcation of defiance against any who dared to question his might. The once champion, who had tasted both the zenith of glory and the bitterness of downfall, now stood ready to reclaim his legacy, his every muscle tensed, coiled like a dragon awaiting the storm.
Who else?
The air seemed to freeze, the spectators holding their breath, each heart pounding in rhythm with the silent drums of war. The hesitation amongst the students was palpable, a living entity that slithered through the arena. Their awe of Zane Martel's brutal assertion on the battleground was shadowed by an ingrained fear, a primal recognition of the power he wielded so effortlessly.
Who dares challenge him after what he did?
In that brief interlude of silence, the arena's atmosphere was charged with a palpable tension, a collective breath held by all. It was in this moment, a pause stretched thin by anticipation, that a voice shattered by it, a voice both strong and confident, its clarity cutting through the heavy air like a well-honed blade. It was Alena standing resolutely at the entrance of the arena. Her eyes burned with a fierce determination, the fire of ambition and challenge flickering within as she stared down the legendary Zane Martel, the unbeatable warrior whose myth pervaded the academy.
I'll do it.
As she stepped forward, her movements graceful yet filled with power, the crowd could not help but be captivated. Alena's presence was formidable, a blend of beauty and strength that commanded attention. Her armor caught the last rays of the setting sun, casting glimmers like stars against the darkening sky, mirroring the resolve in her eyes. Zane Martel, so often the immovable object in these contests, found himself momentarily distracted by the audacity of this challenger. The crowd sensed a shift, the crackling energy of a true contest beginning to spark.
Zane Martel, where are your eyes looking?
I...
The moment hung suspended, Zane Martel's usual unflappable demeanor wavering under Alena's bold gaze. His response, halting and uncharacteristic, reflected his momentary disarray. But the warrior within soon reasserted himself. Realizing the true depth of the challenge before him, Zane Martel's posture stiffened, his grip on his dragon blood sword tightening. The air around him seemed to drop in temperature, the atmosphere thickening with the promise of frost. His sword, a legendary blade forged in dragon's fire and quenched in the ice of the northern glaciers, gleamed ominously, reflecting his restored resolve.
Zane Martel, I can't beat you. I'm here for your guidance on the art of sword.
Her voice, though filled with admiration, carried an underlying steel, a testament to her courage and her unyielded spirit. She stood not merely as a challenger, but as a seeker of wisdom, her quest for knowledge as keen as any blade. Recognizing the sincerity and rarity of such a request, Zane Martel found himself reassessing Alena, not just as an opponent, but as a fellow martial artist, whose thirst for growth mirrored his own past. As Alena awaited his response, the air between them, thick with the electric buzz of impending combat and enlightenment, her internal monologue raced. She knew the legends of Zane Martel and had studied his fights, his techniques, and his incredible comebacks. To stand here seeking instruction rather than victory was her own form of rebellion against expectations, her own way of forging a path that others might follow. Around them, the arena was a vast cauldron of whispers and gasps, the spectators divided between those who admired Alena's boldness and others who questioned her sanity. But above all, there was a burgeoning respect, a sense that something extraordinary was unfolding before their eyes. Zane Martel, feeling the weight of those countless eyes upon him, the heavy mantle of his reputation, found himself at a crossroads. Here was a warrior asking not for mercy, not for leniency, but for knowledge, for the secret threads that wove skill into mastery. It was an appeal to the teacher he had once aspired to be, before battles and wars had hardened him into the legend he was today. The decision lay heavy on his shoulders, a test not just of his skill with the sword, but of his generosity of spirit. Could he, the great Zane Martel, step beyond the ego of the undefeated champion to become a mentor? The tension was not just in the clash of swords, but in the meeting of past and future, of legacies and possibilities. This confrontation, this plea for guidance, wasn't just about her own growth. It was a challenge thrown at the feet of a legend. Would Zane Martel rise to meet it? As the silence stretched, laden with expectation and the heavy breaths of an enthralled audience, Zane Martel finally shifted. His eyes, which had studied Alena with the cold assessment of a warrior, warmed slightly, recognizing not just the fighter before him, but the spirit that drove her. This moment, ripe with the potential to shift destinies, awaited his answer. The crowd's energy shifted palpably as Alena, with a bold stride into the arena, proposed an unexpected truce of knowledge over combat. Zane Martel, ever the stoic and seasoned warrior, found himself intrigued yet wary of this enigmatic challenger who defied the usual clamor for battle with a request for enlightenment.
Heart-sword integration.
Yes, teach me and I owe you a favor, a promise to aid you when you need.
Their dialogue, though quiet, was a captivating dance of mentorship and curiosity. Zane Martel, known for his prowess in battle rather than his openness, delved into explaining the heart-sword integration with a rare openness that suggested a deep trust in the potential of his listener. Alena, her focus intense, hung on every word, her mind actively piecing together the wisdom being imparted.
The so-called heart-sword integration is not just about the sword and the body, but the alignment of intent and spirit.
Unseen by the pair, the audience was abuzz with speculation. The whispers of intrigue, jealousy, and admiration blended together, swirling through the crowd like a gust of wind ahead of a storm, each listener drawing their own conclusions from the interaction unfolding before them.
Is he seducing her with words as sharp as his sword? What did he say to make our goddess blush?
The educational nature of their encounter, initially meant to be a mere demonstration of skill, transformed subtly into a display of potential alliances and unspoken promises. The exchange between Alena and Zane Martel, layered with personal and professional stakes, hinted at future collaborations that could alter their paths significantly.
Zane Martel, thank you. This favor, I won't forget it.
As the chapter neared its close, the air thick with the weight of their exchanged words, the implications of their newly formed bond began to dawn on those present. What would result from this intertwining of fate and ambition? How would the promises made today shape the challenges and battles of tomorrow? In the darker corners of the arena, unnoticed figures watched the exchange with keen interest, their minds whirred with strategic calculations, contemplating moves in a game enhanced by the emergence of a new, formidable player. What strategies would they devise, recognizing the potential shifts in power dynamics? Who would step forward to test the strength of this fresh alliance under the scrutinizing gaze of both allies and rivals? Opening music fades out. In the sprawling arena where titans clashed and legends were born, the air was thick with tension and anticipation. As Zane Martell and Alena's fervent discussion faded into the background, all eyes were drawn towards the main event. A hush fell over the crowd, the only sound the beating hearts of thousands watching in rapt attention. Amidst the electric atmosphere, two figures stood out. Zanther of Fire Scorpion Academy, wielding a scarlet bow that whispered of secrets untold, and Grant Young of White Wolf Academy, whose fists were legends themselves. Each step they took resonated like thunder, promises of an epic battle hanging heavy in the air. Each arrow Zanther released was not merely a projectile, but a blazing embodiment of wrath, morphing into a ferocious red dragon that sought to devour its prey. The crimson shafts cut through the air, igniting the skies with an infernal glow.
Not today.
Grant Young's voice, laden with defiance, cut sharply through the dragon's roar. His fists clenched at his sides were not just tools of combat, but symbols of his indomitable will. With every breath, he drew upon the ancient strength of his academy, his muscles coiling like springs. The crowd's anticipation turned to awe as Grant Young countered the dragon's fiery onslaught with a series of explosive punches. The air around him was alive with his power, the force of his strikes breaking the very sound barrier. Each collision between fist and flame sent shockwaves rippling through the arena, the ground beneath their feet trembling. As the shattered remnants of Zanther's arrow fell like rain, Grant Young's chest heaved with the exertion of his efforts. Sweat glistened on his brow, each drop reflecting the fiery light of battle. In that moment, he was more than just a warrior. He embodied his academy's spirit, resilient, fearless, unyielding. Zanther, however, remained a figure of calm in the storm, his eyes fixed on Grant Young with an unsettling intensity. His hand reached for another arrow, movement smooth and deliberate, starkly contrasting the chaotic energy of Grant's offense. The scarlet bow, ancient and powerful, seemed to hum with anticipation, its secrets locked within the wood, waiting to be unleashed. As Zanther knocked the arrow, the air thickened, the energy palpable. The crowd held its breath, sensing the shift in the tide. This was more than a duel. It was a dance of fate, each step preordained by the legacy of their schools. The silence that followed was deafening. Time seemed to slow as the arrow sped towards its target, its path illuminated by the dying light of the setting sun that filtered through the high arches of the arena. The shadows cast by the towering pillars danced wildly across the sand, mirroring the tumult within the hearts of the onlookers. Then in a blink, the arena erupted into chaos. Grant Young, with a roar that echoed his ancestors' battle cries, launched himself forward. His body moved with the grace and precision of a striking viper, dodging the deadly missile by mere inches. As he landed, the sand beneath his feet whispered tales of battles past, each grain a silent witness to the glory and tragedy of the arena's history. Grant Young's fierce and unblinking gaze locked onto Zanther, who stood across from him, an enigma wrapped in the shadows of his own making. The two warriors, caught in the eye of the storm, seemed for a moment to be the only souls in existence. Around them, the world faded to a murmur, their breaths loud in the sudden quiet. The next move could tilt the scales of destiny, the weight of their legacies pressing down upon their shoulders. The crowd, suddenly alive with energy, began to chant, their voices rising in a crescendo that seemed to shake the very foundations of the earth. Grant Young fought back with a fury, his punches tearing through the dragon. The clash was a spectacle of raw power versus mystical force, each blow delivered with the might of generations. The air around them crackled, charged with the intensity of the battle. However, Grant Young's indomitable spirit was not enough on this day. A swift and true arrow cut through the turmoil, a silent harbinger of his downfall. The arrow pierced his armor with the precision of a master archer, finding its mark with deadly efficiency. A hushed gasp swept through the crowd as the mighty warrior's knees buckled. His fall resonated across the arena, a thunderous thud echoing the sudden shift in fate. And just like that, the Titan fell, the arena silent but for the echoes of the duel that had just passed. The spectators held their breath, the aftermath hanging heavily in the air like a dense fog, their hearts heavy with the fall of a beloved champion. But the true spectacle was yet to unfold. Hugh, the enigmatic beauty of the Azure Dragon Academy, now stepped forward, his gaze locked on Zanther. His silhouette cut a striking figure against the setting sun, the fading light casting long shadows that mirrored the tension of the impending duel.
Zanther, this time, it's my honor to challenge you.
The words echoed across the arena, carrying a weight of unspoken history and a thirst for redemption. The audience, catching the undercurrent of challenge in his tone, began to murmur among themselves, the whispers growing into a cacophony of excitement and anticipation. Sensing the brewing storm, the crowd erupted. This was no ordinary fight. It was a clash of titans, each move a story, each strike a destiny. The air thickened with the electric charge of anticipation, and the energy surged like a living thing, palpable and vibrant.
Let's see if you've grown, Hugh.
As Zanther drew his bow, the strands seemed to sing with potential destruction, the hum of tension resonant in the charged atmosphere. His eyes, alight with the thrill of combat, bore into Hugh's, promising a battle that would be remembered for ages. Hugh, responding to the unspoken challenge, took his stance with the grace of a dancer and the deadly intent of a seasoned warrior. His hand hovered over the hilt of his sword, the flower-print sword, which gleamed ominously in the twilight. Around them, the world seemed to slow, the sounds of the crowd fading to a distant rumble. In this moment, the arena was their world, the ground their chessboard, and they the players in a high-stakes game where every move was both an opening and a potential end. The anticipation built to a crescendo, the collective breath of the spectators held in a silent plea for greatness. In the stands, young warriors leaned forward, their eyes wide with admiration and fear, the older veterans nodding slowly, recognizing the telltale signs of a duel that would be talked about for generations. As the silence stretched, it was as though the entire arena held its breath, waiting for the clash that would unleash the storm. Zanther's finger tightened on the bowstring, the weapon now a part of him, an extension of his will and power. Hugh's eyes narrowed, a slight smile playing on his lips as he anticipated the coming challenge. The air around him shimmered with his rising energy, the ground beneath his feet seeming to pulse in time with his heartbeat. The moment was upon them, a pause in the rhythm of the world, a breath between heartbeats. Then, with the suddenness of a storm breaking, Zanther released the arrow, its flight straight and true, a bolt of lightning aimed at the heart of the tempest. And so, with the flight of an arrow, the battle commenced, a dance of destiny played out before an audience wrapped with the spectacle of a lifetime. The clash of wills, the meeting of fates, all unfolding in the arena where legends were born and titans clashed. As Zanther drew his bow, the air itself seemed to tremble. The intensity of the moment was palpable, as if the very atmosphere was charged with a potent mix of anticipation and dread. Every spectator felt the tension, a collective breath held as the fateful encounter unfolded. Hugh, with a grace that belied the lethal intent of his actions, unsheathed his flower-print sword. The weapon, known throughout the lands for its exquisite craftsmanship and deadly beauty, gleamed under the arena's lights, casting eerie shadows that danced like spirits cheering on their champion. The battle was a dance of flames and wind, each movement more desperate than the last. Hugh's shout, a war cry of ancient lineage, echoed through the arena, turning it into a furnace. His fire dragon, summoned from the depths of his warrior spirit, roared towards Zanther, a blazing behemoth of wrath.
Wind god arrow.
The fire and wind collided in a spectacular explosion, the outcome hanging in balance. The clash sent shockwaves rippling through the arena, the force so powerful that the very stones beneath the combatants' feet cracked and hissed. The spectators leaned forward, their breaths held, as the two warriors faced each other in the scorched arena. Eyes wide, hearts pounding, the crowd could almost feel the heat of the flames and the chill of the cutting wind, as if they too were part of the cataclysmic battle.
Show me your strength, Zanther, or this ends now.
The battle raged, swords and arrows a blur. Amidst the chaos, Hugh's movements were fluid, his every step and swing calculated with the precision of a master. Each stroke of his blade cut through the air with deadly grace, leaving trails of glowing embers in its wake.
Sky returning arrow. Pearflower storm.
As Zanther unleashed his ultimate attack, the sky itself seemed to respond. His arrow, infused with his deepest power reserves, shot upwards, piercing the clouds above. The heavens opened, and a torrent of fiery energy descended, turning the sky into a canvas of apocalyptic beauty. As the flames danced in the sky, reflecting in the eyes of every spectator, one question remained unanswered. Could Hugh match this display of raw power? Or had Zanther already sealed his victory? In this arena, where every echo told stories of glory and defeat, the saga of Zanther and Hugh added another layer to its rich history. As the crowd dispersed under the starlit sky, whispers of the night's epic showdown traveled far and wide, igniting debates and admiration in equal measure. Beneath the surface of this battle, deeper currents flowed, of rivalry and respect, of power tested and limits broken. These were the moments that defined the essence of their journey, the forge upon which their spirits were tempered. As the echoes of the clash faded into the chill of the night, the legacy of what had transpired would linger in the hearts and minds of all who witnessed it, a tale of fire and wind etched into the annals of time.